What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Redonkulous Gaming. Thanks for tuning in. Today we are talking about Vengeance Demon Hunter. Here I am. Shadowlannds has dropped. I have a decision to make because, darn it, I am going to tank in Shadowllands on my Demon Hunter, and I have no clue which covenant I want to commit to. We're going to be digging into that today, talking about the different abilities that each covenant grants you, the positives, the negatives, all of the above when it comes to figuring out which covenant you should best identify with. In order to do that, we're going to have to look at a grade scale, and this is ultimately the way that I have broken out the stack rank that we're about to go over. So first and foremost, these ranks are spec specific. I'm not talking about Demon Hunter as a class. I am talking about Vengeance, the spec within the class of Demon Hunter. Something that we absolutely need to keep in mind, because the answer for which covenant does my Demon Hunter belong in may be a different answer than the spec specific conversation that we're having today. So take this with a grain of salt. Next, I am making these projections simply based on the early stages of the X-Pack, based on what we know, with beta being probably about we're a month and 10 days away as of this recording from the actual launch of Shadowlands. So we can make some pretty bold projections based on the current state of these covenant abilities, and that's what we're going to do here. But keep in mind, these are likely going to change with different 0.0 releases of Shadowlands, and this is going to be a never-ending battle and all-consuming for us players, and Blizzard has really given us something to mull over for the next 2.5 years or so. Number 3, we're going to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of these abilities, but the way that I have had to rank these and what has made it tough is that some of these abilities are more appealing for a specific piece of content. In other words, this ability may be really strong in dungeons, but it's lackluster in raid. Or, hey, this ability is great in PvP, but you might not want to take it when you're soloing, or something like that. So just kind of fill in the blank on those type of scenarios. So the stack ranks and the way that I've gone about ranking them, ultimately our number 1 rank is going to enable you to do more than one type of content or most of the content available in the game without it necessarily, quote unquote, feeling bad as a player. And last, certainly not least, and probably most importantly, I am evaluating the Covenant class abilities and only the Covenant class abilities. A lot of tweaking that we're going to be seeing from Blizzard around these class abilities is likely going to come through the conduit system. Blizzard has said they're going to reach out to their community. They're trying to get feedback and beta from everyone who's actively playing it right now to figure out what changes need to be made to ultimately balance these abilities. These abilities have been around for a while now. Blizzard is likely more inclined to tweak the conduit system, which inherently will tweak the class abilities without actually touching the abilities themselves. It's probably a safe bet to say that we will not see a major overhaul of the Covenant class abilities themselves, barring something unforeseen, but we've only got a month and 10 days until expansion drops, so we're going to make a bold prediction and say odds are we're going to be stuck with the Covenant abilities as they stand today, and we'll start to see some tweaks in the actual conduit system themselves. So we're taking that out of the mix entirely. So let's jump into our stack ranking for Vengeance Demon Hunter, and we are going to start at the bottom. So the way that I have done this is I have put Night Fae in the number 4 overall position for Vengeance Demon Hunters. Few reasons for this. The Hunt is the ability that you're granted by joining up with the Night Fae. I'm not thinking about any of the aesthetics. I am not thinking about anything other than how does the ability feel, how is the ability's strength, and what's the overall viability of the Covenant ability. The Hunt is a crazy range charge. It is nuts. You can charge from so far away. It roots the mob that you're attacking in place for 3 seconds, does nature damage over time, and ultimately gives you more mobility. As a demon hunter, when I look at the Covenant class abilities, the last thing that I have in my toolkit that I would say I need more of is mobility. I have plenty of mobility as a demon hunter. I don't need any more. And unfortunately, the hunt is giving you extra mobility, a relatively weak damaging trait, and very low utility overall in the form of a root. It's not even something that's going to be affecting boss mobs and raid. And so when we answer these 3 questions, how does it feel? It can be a pretty fun spell. It's really fun to charge from that far away. It looks aesthetically appealing, but the strength of the ability is it's not strong. It's relatively weak, and the viability outside of very little content, I would even argue to say it's more of a solo skill than anything. It might be more of a meme skill as it stands today. I don't see it being viable in dungeons, let alone raid or anything like that. I could stand to be corrected very early on, right? Blizzard could come out with this crazy raid fight similar to Dragons and Emerald Nightmare that requires a lot of mobility and the ability to run halfway across the map to tank a target. But as of right now, I'm not aware of any fight like that. So unfortunately, Night Fae, it comes in last place for me, and it's really not much of an argument. So as we look at the next rank, so number 3 overall, it's actually closer to a 2A tie. I would almost stack rank these 4 covenants as 1, 2, and 3, and have second place go to 2 covenants. But if I had to go 2A and 2B, this is my 2B. And that is number 3, Kyrian. Let me explain why, because this may upset some people who have really kind of theorycraft the skill and they feel like this makes a lot of sense to double down on and play. So again, we go back to our 3 questions. How does the ability feel? What's the ability's strength? And what's the viability? And again, this is specific to Demon Hunter as a vengeance, as a tank. How does the ability feel? It feels as though you're casting any other sigil. There's no way to beat around the bush here. You have 4 sigils already in your arsenal. This adds a 5th for you. It does flat out damage, which is okay. It's not great. It's better than your Sigil of Flame, but it doesn't bring a whole lot of nuance to the class. It doesn't feel exciting. It's not necessarily fun to have another sigil, but what it does do is it gives you Fractured Souls, which you then can gobble up and get some extra healing out of. So it's healing on demand is the way I look at this one in the form of a sigil. The problem is that it takes a lot of setup currently, because you've got to wait for the sigil to go off, and if you're expecting to chains, then you're likely not in the option to have instant sigils go off. So you have to keep that in mind. So you have to tee up and kind of set up the scenario in which you're going to use your sigil. You're going to give that 2 seconds to go off. It goes off, you get 3 Fractured Souls out. A second later, you're able to actually consume those souls. So you're talking about a 4 to 5 second window, just depending on the scenario that you're in, to really take advantage of Elysian Decree, which is the sigil that you're granted. So you get 3 Fractured Souls when it hits a target, and it doesn't add a lot of value. Where it's useful though, and why this can be a relatively strong ability, if you're pretty good and used to using it in certain nuanced situations, I feel like it could find its strength in dungeons down the road, maybe in raid here and there, but I think Blizzard has some major overhaul work to do with this to make it much better. Either increase the overall damage, make it so that when the sigil is down and it hits a target, anyone that's affected by that sigil hits you for less damage, flat out 20% mitigation. That would feel much better than the current state, which is flat out just damage with three Fractured Souls going out. So they're going to have to do something extra to this ability to make it be ranked higher than number 3 as it stands today. So as of right now, flat out damage, 3 fractured souls, gobble up the souls, gives you some extra healing, but we already have fracture in our talent tree. We don't necessarily need another fracture once every minute. And so to me, this is a skill that, as I said, it may be viable in dungeons, but beyond that, I don't see a whole lot of room for it to succeed. So that brings us to our two-way tie here for second place, and this is a big one, and it's going to probably cause and give you guys something to talk about. I have Necrolords in at number 2 over Kyrian, but here's why. Fodder to the Flame is the class ability that you're going to get if you go with Necrolords. We have to take into account that you do get the shield ability as well. That's the Covenant ability, not tied to a specific class. So you have the ability to channel that and walk around with up to a 50% absorb shield in the form of the Necrolord Covenant. Where Fodder to the Flame falls down is that it is tied to you standing in place for a long period of time. The duration in which it's actually on the ground for. So if you're not familiar with it, here's how it works. You go ahead, you pull a trash mob, you pull a boss, whatever, you hit your Fodder to the Flame button, and a demon spawns. And it's a demon that you then solo, you beat down, and it dies. And where it dies spawns a pool of blood. As long as you stand in that pool of blood, you will attack 20% faster, and the damage done to you is reduced by 10%. Where this gets problematic and where we start to question the overall viability is the fact that the second you move out of that pool of blood, you no longer have that 20% attack speed increase. You no longer have that 10% mitigation that you're really bartering for if you go with the Necrolord ability. But the reason why I rank this as number 2 is because I think this is a really, really, really easy fix for Blizzard. So my idea here, and where I think they can start to tweak this a little bit, is the ability is super fun. Calling this demon, soloing this demon, beating it down, having it die where you want it to die, that's all great. It adds an extra layer mechanic to the game. So the funness factor is way up there. It's probably the most fun skill that you get out of the 4 covenants. The strength of the ability falls down when you have to move, and you can see it here going on the screen. So this Infernal is going to go down. Luckily, this is a boss that doesn't move around, so you can stand in the pool of blood longer than you can in other scenarios. What I think Blizzard can do to fix this is make it so that pool of blood stays up exactly wherever you kill that demon for the same amount of time that it's up today. But if you have to move out of the pool for whatever reason, you take with you the buff as like a 30-second buff. And if you're lucky enough to be able to refresh it before the pool of blood expires, great. Then you can carry the buff with you for another 30 seconds. I think that would really make Necrolords feel like a go-to Covenant ability. So I think this is a relatively easy fix for Blizzard if they were to make a change like that. Fodder to the Flame, crazy, crazy fun. Nice little demon duel, but it falls down on its face a little bit when you have to move, and everything in World of Warcraft is movement oriented for the most part. So number 2, Necrolords, hoping Blizzard makes this fix. Would love your feedback too on this idea below, because I think it's something they could easily do. So it's no secret, we've got number 2 Necrolords. That means by process of elimination, our number 1 Covenant choice for the Vengeance Demon Hunter is going to be Venthyr. And a couple of things to note here. I will call out Door of Shadows specifically just because it's really fun, even though it's not specific to Demon Hunters. This is where I get a little bit hypocritical because I flame the Night Fae for the hunt and that charge that you get. But I feel as though Door of Shadows has a little bit more viability to it than even the hunt. So standalone. So I almost feel like if you do couple up the benefits and the perks that you can get from Door of Shadows with your conduit system down the road, you can disorient your enemies. You can use it in a lot of different ways as a tank, which could be pretty fun. Now, I said we were going to evaluate these without conduits, so forget everything I said about Door of Shadows. Let's talk about Sinful Brand. Sinful Brand is currently a dot that attacks for 440% of your attack power as shadow damage over 8 seconds. Doesn't sound like a lot. You're probably questioning, okay, why Venthyr at number 1? Well, the other effect it has is that it reduces your enemy's melee attack speed by 30% and their casting speed by 30%. So in other words, it's a passive mitigation skill because the slower they actually hit you, the less damage they do over that 8-period time span that the dot is up. The other thing, and the reason why this is my go-to covenant for Vengeance Demon Hunter, and quite frankly the Demon Hunter class right now, is it synergizes insanely well with Metamorphosis. When you cast Meta and you cast Sinful Brand, if you're pulling a large pack of trash, for example, the second you put Meta up and then hit Sinful Brand to follow, everything that's within range of you is going to get Sinful Brand. And so not only do you have this insane damage over time effect, you also get that mitigation passively put on every single mob that's currently attacking you. And that feels really good to be able to go into a scenario where you know you've got a larger pack pull. So if you're currently playing live, let me throw this scenario at you. Everyone who runs Mechagon Workshop right now avoids that last trash pack before the final boss, before King Mechagon. I feel as though you would skip other packs in the dungeon if you had Sinful Brand to be able to put up on that last pack, because you're going to do insane amount of damage to every single one of those mobs. They're going to get AoE down a lot faster. You're going to be able to slow their attack speed against you, as well as their spell casting, and a large pack like that becomes so much easier to take down with that dot on them. So just that's one example, but hard packs become a lot easier with this dot, and they hit you much less hard than they do currently with Sinful Brand. Now, if you don't have Meta up, it becomes just kind of a boring ability. It's just something that you put on a single target, and that single target then gets the damage over time effect, and it still gets the debuff on it, but it's still 8 seconds. And if you watch meters, or if you have been watching meters as I talk, you'll notice that every time I cast Sinful Brand for those 8 seconds, it's my top performing damage move. So that's something that feels good as a tank, is to be able to know that you have reliable damage output once every minute or so. I fully expect Blizzard to nerf Sinful Brand in some way, shape, or form. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I fully do expect them to nerf this thing. Whether that comes in the form of a longer cooldown, or maybe in the form of, maybe reducing the equation itself so that it's no longer 440% of the attack power, but maybe it's like 375. We'll see. I'm really hoping they don't, though. I really hope they don't touch this, because I think if they do that, they're going to be messing with Havoc a little too much, and Havoc is really relying right now on Sinful Brand. So that's zooming back out to more of the class discussion, which I said we weren't going to get into, but it was a little tough to avoid. So again, just kind of looking at the way we stack rank these, spec specific, with Venthyr being as strong as it is right now, it's really the de facto choice for Demon Hunter. Probably no surprises there for anyone who's paying attention to some of the other content that's out there. I'm projecting this, again, based on the early stages of the X-Pack, and really the thing about Sinful Brand for number 3 is that it allows you to do every part of content. Think about a PvP scenario. Who wouldn't want to make that spellcaster cast their spells 30% slower than what they currently are? It's just a great trolling ability for PvP content. And again, I wanted to take conduits out of it, but with Door of Shadows, it just makes it so that Door of Shadows actually has a place where it can disorient trash mobs. But I feel as though Sinful Brand is going to be useful in just about every piece of content throughout, and I'm hoping that it stays that way. Blizzard, please do not nerf Sinful Brand. It is just crazy fun right now. But again, let me know what you guys think. Tell me if I got it wrong. Tell me if I got it right. Tell me if you hate everything I say. I'm good with that too. But hopefully you got something out of this video. Check back more. Posting videos daily leading up to live release.